Welcome to week 3. We are now working on chapter 3 and chapter 7 this week. So let's get right on to it. Our lesson objectives this week are number 1, we want to look at the major channels of communication. We want to look at some of the barriers to communication and how to overcome them. We also are going to take a look at planning and the importance of strategic planning. So doing that means we need to make sure we have well-defined goals and objectives, so we're going to take a look at that. And we're going to get a little insight into the different types of plans that are used in management. So effective communication, first of all, is the process of transmitting information and understanding. You can say stuff, but the other side has to understand it too. And that's important, being able to transfer from one to the other. It's the method of imparting your ideas and making yourself understood to others. Effective communication really requires a two-way exchange. It means a successful transfer of information, the meaning of what you said, and an understanding from the sender to the receiver and vice versa from the receiver back to the sender. Also means better supervision. The better you can communicate, the better supervisor you are. Your effectiveness depends on your ability to create an environment that fosters communication, not just from you, but from your employees to you. A two-way street, an open-door policy. Employees have to understand your instructions to achieve their objectives. That's part of communication. But you, as a supervisor, also have to know how to receive information and understand those messages sent by your employees as well as your managers above you. So there's different communication channels. There's the downward communication channel where upper level management issues instructions or information given to you to pass on to your subordinates or direct control of, and so on down the line. And then there's upward communication. The action of lower level managers who might work under you or employees in providing relevant, timely, and complete information to you, and so you transcribe and pass that information on to those above you. There's also what's called horizontal communication, and that's the flow of information between different departments or people on the same level horizontally, but in charge of different functions that helps facilitate coordination between the departments. There's a couple different types of formal channels. First of all, there's the informal channel, which is known as the grapevine. Very important because the grapevine carries all the information around through the employees, right or wrong, but it's a network that facilitates some communication on a more informal, unofficial level. And so different groupings of people or the social interactions, they communicate this information one way or the other. And again, right, wrong, true, or false. Understanding that grapevine is very important. It could carry some accurate information, but it could carry some inaccurate information. The path is never one way. It can come from one direction or it can come from another direction. The problem is most of your employees strongly believe that whatever they hear in the grapevine is true. You have to understand it does exist, but be able to be part of it, pick up on it, and then make any corrections to any misinformation or rumors that are existing out there. So some of the communication methods, obviously, first of all, very important, believe it or not, is body language. The way people stand, act, the way their face looks, their expressions, all those are observable actions that are be able to be seen by either the receiver or the sender. And it communicates something to others, whether you mean to or not. If somebody's talking to you and you stand there rolling your eyes, it sends a message to somebody else, and it's not a good message. And some of the messages that you convey through your body language could mean different things to different people, particularly in different cultures. Unexplained action or the lack of doing an action may communicate a message that wasn't intended. Oral and written communication. Spoken and written words are the most common form of communication in any organization. So you need to have a good balance of both written and oral skills so that you're able to effectively communicate. Oral communication is a little bit better than written because it, number one, gives the expressions in body language so people can read it and see what you're saying, whether you mean it this way or that way. And it facilitates understanding by allowing for immediate questioning or feedback on the spot. It doesn't have to wait for a response. The disadvantage, though, is there's no permanent record of the conversation. It could be misinterpreted or distorted, and there's no record written that says, no, I wrote this. When you say something, it could be totally misconstrued and passed down in the wrong way. Written communication is good, but it has to be good communication. And sometimes you can convey a meaning wrong. Let's take a look at what I wrote right here. It's in red in all caps. Why are you always late with your work? Now, what does this mean? If you were to get this message in an email, how would you take it? Then if you got it in small letters and in black print in a typical email, how would you take it? Here's the problem. What's the difference between the two of them? Well, number one, all caps and red letters is perceived a lot differently than lowercase in black print. They're the same exact words, but yet they have a different interpretation to people who receive it. I remember once I used to teach for University of Phoenix. I was really intent on what I was doing, and I was making red corrections because typically when a teacher makes corrections on your written paper, we do it in red so that you can see this is our notes. And I had a habit of putting it in capitals just so to make sure that you saw I was telling you this is good, but you need to fix this, or this conveys the wrong thought, whatever. And I was writing the student back, and I said, you really do great work, and I really appreciate and enjoy reading your material. And then the next line I wrote was, why are you always late with your work? She wrote me back and said, stop shouting at me. Totally threw me for a loop. Stop shouting at me? The more I looked into it, all capitals in red seems to imply that you're angry and you're upset. Whereas if I said the same thing like I did here in small print, where you always late with your work, it means that you're showing concern and you're asking why. So keep that in mind when you're doing your written communication. How people perceive it is just as important as how you meant it. Okay? Why is there a difference? Because people perceive things differently. All right? People will have maybe a bad mood going that one day. And if you're having a bad day and things are not going well, you're going to take that sentence wrong. If you're in a good mood and think that I'm just there to help you, you're going to take it a totally different way. So the difference is that people perceive things differently based on how they feel at the time. Now, visual media is really powerful in conveying message. Putting up pictures, charts, cartoons, symbols, very effective visual aids, helps carry a meaning out, particularly if the concept is a little bit difficult to understand. In businesses, a lot of companies use blueprints, charts, drafts, models, posters. If you go through a business, you'll see all kinds of posters, motivational, together we do more, or whatever, to try to convey a message. Okay? There are barriers to communication. One of them is called noise. Obstacles that distort messages between people and lead to misunderstanding, confusion, or conflict. That's considered noise. It isn't just sound noise either. Then there's language and vocabulary differences. People vary greatly on their ability to convey meaning. Understand this. People from a foreign country who are learning our language take us at our language literally. Okay? So when we use jargon or use other words in there, that kind of an offshoot of what the word means, it confuses people. It definitely does confuse people. And sometimes some words have multiple meanings. Let me give you a quick example of some jargon. We used to have a Japanese exchange student. And young Japanese girls are very fashionable. They're very much in tune with what fashion is and what they should wear. And so she wore a very nice outfit to school. And she came home one day crying from school and ran to her room. And I went in and I asked her, I said, what is wrong? And she said, the girls made fun of me today. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, the girls say, girl, you looking really bad. So I felt bad. I said, no. English language, yes, agreed. But we take and use words in slang. The girls were saying you're looking bad, which means you look good. She said, bad is good? I don't understand. I said, listen, it's our language and we don't even understand it. So you have to be careful what you say to somebody in a foreign country because they're going to take it one way and we mean it another. I hope you follow that example. All right. What else? Well, there's a difference in the way people listen and their attention spans. Some people are intent on listening to everything you say, and some people hear it, but they don't really process it. Today's audience wants to be part of the process, contributing their own experience while demanding visual stimulation. People will try to listen to you while they're sitting there text messaging. Are they really hearing you? We don't know sometimes. And then, thanks to all the ways that we have communication today, could be information overload. Giving people way too much information, causing them to be overwhelmed and complain that they're getting bombarded with irrelevant and redundant messages. We also, as people, in not only in judging other people, but in judging situations, tend to stereotype. Stereotype is our perception that all people in a group share certain attitudes, values, and beliefs. It influences how people respond to others, but it could be a very big, effective communication barrier. Sometimes your status and position changes how you either communicate or how you hear things. Sometimes your attitude towards a person is based on the person's position. If it's your boss, you tend to listen to him. If you're a male and you don't like working for females and your boss is a female, maybe you don't take what they're telling you in the right manner. If you are one person and you have somebody below you telling you a correction that you should have made, you may not be listening to it or taking it properly because you feel like, who are they to tell you? And sometimes we filter, we omit or eliminate or even soften unpleasant details that we don't want to hear. And some of us, whether we admit it or not, are very resistant to change or new ideas. If a message is intended to convey a change or new idea, something that will change our work assignment, our position, our daily routine, sometimes we tend to resist it or color it a little bit so that we don't have to like it, if you follow what I'm saying. You, again, have to make sure you're able to create good meaning. Communication begins with a sender. It sends out a message or a thought, and the receiver needs to interpret that message the way you meant it to be, not on how they thought it was to be. So from what you send out and how they receive it, it could differ. Meaning is shared understanding of the message. So say what you mean what you say, and try to make it as clear as you can. And a tip for you, excuse me, a tip for you is check for understanding. Ask them, did you understand what I said? Or do you follow what I mean when I say da 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 da? Just to make sure. Because sometimes we as humans don't want to say, sorry, I really don't get that. Okay, so to overcome good communication barriers, you have to use effective communications. That means reinforcing your words with actions. It requires you to prepare and plan properly, meaning you have to think ahead a little bit. Use feedback. Get the information back from people. Make sure you speak in direct and clear language without slang words. Do it in a calm atmosphere. Do not let your emotions color the way you speak. Don't talk to anybody when you're upset. Wait and come back at it when you can calm down. Take time to listen to everything everybody's telling you. Stop what you're doing, look at them, and hear them. When you are unsure, have them repeat the message, or also check for understanding by have them repeating the message back to you. There are a lot of good steps to achieving good communication objectives, and I tell you again, some of these things in this book are the best things that you could possibly do. If you're not going to keep the book, take at least in Xerox some of these pages out, like here, Steps to Achieving Communication Objectives. Xerox a copy of it. Keep it in your portfolio of things to do to improve yourself. These tips will always be there for you, and you should refer to them frequently. There are do's and don'ts for effective listening, what to do and what not to do. Don't become defensive when you're listening. Do stop what you're doing and look at your person with eye contact, read their body language, and listen to what they're saying. There. Managing your meeting with the boss. There's also communication there, not just to your employees. So you need to respect the boss's time and not cloud them with a lot of superfluous information. Check your motive. Be specific, clear, and concise. While you're doing it, analyze the boss's listening style. Are they really paying attention to you? Plan what you're going to say. Plan your agenda. Don't go to the boss, as they call naked, shooting from the hip or being spontaneous, because a well-planned thought will get more meaning conveyed than you just shooting from the cuff. Commit to the truth no matter what. Advertise success. Learn to say no if the boss says, is that something you think you can do? If you don't think you can do it, say, I don't think I can, or explain why. Don't filter any information from your boss. They're sending you a message that they want you to understand, so don't try to change it to something else. Anticipate problems. Meet periodically to clarify the boss's expectations. Don't be a whiner or a complainer. Do not put the boss on the defense. Don't try to show that you have the upper hand or you know more than them. Always leave on a positive note. Let your boss continue thinking good things about you. If there is a problem or disagreement, make a resolution. All right, now let's go to Chapter 7, Planning. Management planning, very important. This is where you decide what has to be done in the future. And it works well in your communication. What are you going to say? What are you going to communicate? What's the message? How am I going to get it there? Planning involves analyzing a situation, forecasting events, establishing your objectives, setting priorities, trying to make a decision on which action to take to achieve objectives. That's all part of the planning process, and it's a daily function that everyone in management has to do. Strategic planning is getting on the right track and staying on the right track. It's the process of establishing goals and making decisions that enable an organization to achieve long-term and short-term objectives. Pretty much from the strategic end, it's the responsibility of the top-level management for developing and executing long-term strategic plans. However, it does require that middle management and supervisors create supportive corresponding activities and plans to support that strategic goal. So whatever corporate hands down, you have to develop plans that complement that and help work towards attaining that goal. Typically, every company has what's called a mission and vision statement. A mission statement is pretty much a statement of the basic philosophy, purpose or reason for why the organization is what it is. Why are we in business? Vision is management's view of what the company should become, kind of reflects on their core values, what their priorities are, and what their goals are, and where they want to be. Okay? So, a mission statement is like the nature of business. And if you look at the example here, it tells you, now this is kind of a long mission statement. I love Starbucks' mission statement. It's very short, sweet, concise, and to the point. Look it up on the web. I think you'll agree with me. It says everything it needs to say in just a few sentences. These long, drawn-out ones are not great because most of your employees can't remember them. You should see Ben and Jerry's mission statement. It's a page and a half long. If you go into Ben and Jerry's and ask one of the employees, what is your mission statement? They're not going to know. They're going to go, make a lot of ice cream and make money, I guess. I don't know. You go to Starbucks and ask most employees, and most of them can tell you, we want to satisfy one cup, one customer at a time in every neighborhood across the country. I mean, it's whatever, however they say it, they're very close to it. It's easy to say. All right. Strategic long-term planning. Plans that are done at the higher level usually, even though the author says 3, 5, 10 or more years, most of them are 5-year strategic plans. Most businesses make what's called a 5-year plan. They want to say, what has got to be done, when, who should do it, how should we do it, how are we going to get there, what's our goal, where do we want to be in 5 years. Short-range planning are all those plans that are usually 1 year or less. Specialized planning is very short-range plans, maybe for a month or 3 months, kind of like preventive maintenance planning, something that short-run has a special purpose for it. Objectives and goals. A goal is a long-term target, and it's one that will take usually more than a year to achieve. That's a goal. The objectives are all the little steps that it takes that you have to accomplish to reach the goal. It's like the goal is, I want to get in my car and I want to drive to California. I want to go to Los Angeles. The objective is all the places you will stop on the way to get to the goal. So they're like milestones. First we have to drive out of Michigan and get into Chicago, and then from Chicago get on the freeway and make it to Nebraska, stay the night in Nebraska, and then drive to Idaho the following day. Those are objectives, those are milestones. Supervisors have to remember 2 things when they develop their department objectives. Number 1, department objectives must be aligned with the goals and objectives of the main corporation or the organization. You can't be off on a pioneer trip somewhere else on your own. You need to be following what the company or corporation wants to do. And 2, there's got to be some means of measure to say, this is what we have to achieve by when, and this is how we'll know when we've reached that goal. Excuse me, losing my voice. The weather is doing that to me right now. Now, there's also what's called MBOs, Management by Objective. This is a process in which the supervisor and employee jointly set objectives, and the employee receives rewards if they obtain those objectives, usually a raise or promotion. The elements of a good MBO system are specific, measurable, and verifiable objectives. To do this by then, by this much. And so at that time, when the time comes, then you should be able to look at it and go, yes, they did gain this much by this certain time. Perfect. The inputs and resources that are needed for the goal accomplishment. It should state pretty much the activities and processes that have to be carried out to accomplish the goal. And then, needless to say, it needs to show the results. There are a variety of different types of plans. There's what's called standing plans. These are policies, procedures, methods, rules that are used for recurring situations. If an employee is late for work, they get verbal warning. If they're late a second time, they get a write-up. If they're late a third time, they all get a write-up and a couple days off without pay. And if they're late once again after that, then they're terminated. That is a standing plan. That's a company's standing plan for how to handle violation of rules. A policy is a standing plan originated by the top-level management that serves as a guide to making decisions. Gives you a little bit of flexibility if needed, but for the most part, this is generally our policy and how we handle that. A procedure is a standing plan that defines the sequence of activities to be performed to attain certain objectives. This is the way we do certain things, and this is how we obtain these objectives by following this method. Method is a standing plan that details exactly how an operation is to be performed. And a rule is a directive that has to be applied and enforced. Somebody's late a lot, they're breaking the rule, you have to enforce it. All right, then there's what's called single-use plans. These are one time only, used to accomplish maybe a particular or specific objective, and pretty much a single designated time period. Like a budget. Budgets are express specific anticipated results in numerical, usually financial terms for a stated period of time. Meaning, like, you have a budget of you will not spend more than $50,000 this year in your department, and it is to be used for supplies and equipment upgrades and repair, etc., etc. That's a budget. Program is a major single-use plan for a large undertaking related to accomplishing a certain goal or objective. So that's a program. And a project is a single-use plan for accomplishing a specific non-recurring activity. It's something that's going to happen one time and probably not happen again. So the planning of resources. Full use of human resources requires developing plans for recruiting, selecting, and training people, searching for better ways to group the activities to get it done, training your employees in the proper and safe use of materials and equipment, supervising employees in an understanding of how humans work and what their needs and motivational factors are, being able to communicate effectively with them, praising their performance, applauding and recognizing their achievement, promoting those employees who deserve it, not those just because they go golfing with you, adequately compensating and rewarding employees, and having fair disciplinary actions, meaning that the rules broken, it applies to everyone no matter who they are. All right. Employee work schedules. Overtime, absences. Overtime should be considered an exception or an emergency measure. It's not something that you should plan to do on a regular basis. It drains people, it demotivates them, and quite honestly, you're not getting the work that you normally do during regular time because people are tired now, their mind is gone, and they want to go home. You can plan for anticipated absences like vacations and holidays by covering with overtime or by covering with somebody else or a temporary worker or shifting schedules so that that work doesn't have to be done at that particular time. And the big thing, too, in today's workforce is alternative work plans. Flex time, knowing that you have a single parent who has to drop their child off at the school bus at 7:45 and has to drive 25 minutes to work, there's no way they're going to be to work at 8 o'clock. So you let them work in flex time environment. They get there by 8:15 and they stay until 4:15 or 4:45, working their 8 hours. They're still getting their 8 hours done. They're still getting the work done that needs to be done, but it gives them some flexible timing so they can do what they have to do. Part-time workers, if you don't need full-time or you want to have several part-time workers to help them, give them a job, that's a possibility. This kind of goes hand in hand with job sharing. There are some single parents who their child goes to daycare or kindergarten the first half of the day, so they can work then, but they really need to be off the second half of the day. And maybe there's another lady whose child goes to daycare or kindergarten the second half of the day. So you have this is what's called job sharing. You have one mom come in working 8 to 12. She leaves, goes at noon, picks up her child, she goes home for the day. And the other mom comes in at noon and works 12 to 4. You're still getting 8 hours worth of work done on a particular task, but you're sharing it between two ladies who need the work, but also have to work their personal life into it. Telecommuting, conference calling, working from home. I know several people who work for hospitals from home. They do, what do you call that? They encode the insurance claims from home at their computers. So They get the information sent to them electronically or by fax, and then they go into the insurance company and code it and do the billing, and they work strictly from home. That way they're home with their children, and they get the work done within the day at a flexible time for them. Part-time temporary people, sometimes you hire extra people or temps to get you through a period of upswing, or maybe you hire people through an agency instead, so that way you can look at the person to see if you really like them as a worker. And if you don't, then you don't have to go through the process of writing up all this paperwork to get rid of them. You just call the agency and say, we don't want them no more. Bring us somebody else. You also want to look at improving your work procedures and methods. Whenever you are building job procedures for people to work, there's questions you should ask yourself. Number one, is each operation necessary? What's the purpose of that operation? Can one operation be combined with another at the same time, maybe by adding some kind of automation or robotics so that one worker isn't struggling to perform a task? Are the steps being done in the best sequence that it could be done? Are there any avoidable delays that could cause the worker to not attain their work? Now, here's something that a lot of companies don't do. It's called crisis planning. Planning for those things that could happen that are unthinkable. And it's a proactive approach. Things happen. What if a tornado hits today and knocks our building down? What do? What if we catch on fire and half the building burns down? Now what? What if we're having a major snowstorm and our suppliers cannot get the raw materials to us so that we can get our production done on time? These are all things that can happen day to day, but most of us just don't think about. But it really needs to be an integral part of your long and short-term planning. So management and supervision has to anticipate what has to be done to adjust when circumstances and priorities change rapidly. It also allows supervisors to use their information getting and information giving skills to help their employees prepare for and address crises. It's what I call the what if plan. What if? What if this happens? What if that happens? It's an alternative plan or a backup plan to cover in case something goes wrong. And it's something that you should do and plan ahead. Always look at everything you're doing and go, all right, if that doesn't work, what do? What if this doesn't happen? What should we do then? Always have an alternative backup plan. So, the steps are identify the unthinkables, what could happen that we just couldn't imagine, come up with a plan for dealing with it, develop what's called a contingency plan, form a crisis team, simulate drills. What happens if we have a tornado? Do we know what to do? Respond immediately, if not sooner. Don't be afraid to apologize. Learn from the experience of others, those who may have been through it, or other companies may have policies and things in motion that you can incorporate into your place. But remember, there is no rewind button when a crisis occurs. When it happens, it's too late. If you didn't have a plan or weren't prepared for it, there's no way you can go, well, let's do that over again and then we'll do it right. No, get ready for it now. And then when it happens, you hopefully will be doing it right. All right, again, end of a lecture. So see your weekly assignment folder. Make sure you do the weekly quiz only after you listen to these lectures. Get on the weekly discussion board, post your response, post it to other students, and begin work on your weekly homework or your team project. Anything else, give me an email. Again, remember, homework is due every week, Saturday evening by 11:30. And that's it. Have a great week, and we'll talk again.